the day after this election, if we as a nation have put into office the office of the presidency, either one of these two candidates from the two dominant political parties, we will be in a whole new place. We will be in a place that we have been heading to for a long time, for decades. And we will have ensured a particular outcome by putting into office either one of these two candidates from the two dominant political parties. It matters not which one. It does not matter. If we put either one of them in the office of the presidency in this next election, we will have arrived at a very particular place. And that place is a nation that is at the doorstep of default. And right now, we are taking that step into default. And by putting either one of these two candidates in office, we are guaranteeing that step continues. We are guaranteeing it. That step will continue, and it will come down hard. It will be an undesirable outcome financially. Additionally, we are guaranteeing a continuation of division in our government. The same division that has led us to this point. We are guaranteeing another 4 years, a continuation of division. And that division is leading to an erosion of our democracy. And it is hurting our most important resource, the Keystone citizen. The tax-paying, working, middle America Keystone citizen. We are hurting that resource at this time. We have been for decades. And with this election, if we put in office either one of these two candidates, we are guaranteeing a continuation of division, loss of democracy, erosion of democracy, and we are guaranteeing that we are going to continue hurting our most valuable resource. Let's take a look. This is our nation as a whole. Our entire economy, our entire infrastructure, all citizens, right here. This right here. This is the Keystone citizen. Keystone citizen is the citizen amongst all the citizenry. This citizen is the tax-paying, working, middle America Keystone citizen. They collectively make up the citizenry, the group that pays collectively the majority of the bill and does 100% of the work. No other group does that. No other entity does that. This represents the few on the right that align with the party on the right. This represents the few on the left that align with the party on the left. This will be our two candidates. This is our government. This is our government. This is our media. This is special interests. This is major influencers, celebrities, past politicians, anyone who has a voice that is of a national level. Anyone who has a voice that speaks to a national audience, that is a major influencer. The two parties. The two current existing parties. The problem The problem right now in this nation, and it has been this way for decades, the problem is right here. It's the two existing parties. They are the problem. The parties are fueled by the media, by the special interests, by the major influencers. The parties bring us candidates every election cycle. In this case, we'll use the two candidates for the presidency of the United States, one on the right, one on the left, brought to us by the two parties. Both these candidates do not represent the will of the people. They do not represent the majority. They do not represent consensus. They do not represent democracy. They are not of the will of the people. The two parties are the problem. They bring us candidates that do not represent the will of the people. And so we have a situation at this time where the people, in particular, the Keystone citizen, this nation's most valuable resource, these folks are once again faced with a decision with two candidates, one on the right, one on the left, and neither one of them properly represents the center supermajority. If you'll notice, our government, our media, the two parties, special interests, and major influencers are all divided right down the middle. The only aspect of this equation that is not divided right down the middle is the population, is the people. The people, the center supermajority is flanked by a few on the right and a few on the left. The few on the right align with the right side of the party, with the right side of the government, with the right side of the media, with the right side of the special interests and major influencers. The same thing happens with the candidate on the left. The candidate on the left, sent to us by the party, aligns with the party, the left side of the government, and so on. The only entity here that's not divided, the only part of this equation that's not divided down the middle is the people. We are a united nation. We are united. We have a majority on every issue. Every issue we are united on. There is consensus on every issue. These two candidates do not represent consensus. That is why they are fighting over votes. The problem is the two parties, fueled by the media, fueled by the special interests and the major influencers. These major influencers that come along and weigh in on our politics, whomever they might be, celebrities, whomever they might be, they come along and they weigh in one side or the other as if somehow they think that they're doing a service to the people of the United States. They are furthering a continuation of division. That's what they're doing. They're not helping. This equation needs to be interrupted. It needs assistance. We are locked horns in this nation. We have a few on the right and a few on the left. In conjunction with these aspects right here, have locked our government. The Congress of the United States is locked. And that is the most important part of our government right now that needs to be altered, that needs immediate help. It is our Congress. The answer to our situation is not the presidency. The answer to our situation is for the voice of the Keystone citizen to be heard in our government, in our Congress. That is the answer. And that is not happening. It is not happening because of the two parties, which are the problem. This is a citizen's guide for the independent Keystone Party. This party represents the baseline center supermajority on every issue. We are a united people. We are a united nation. We just don't know it. The media doesn't tell us we're united. They don't help us find that unity. The government doesn't tell us we're united. They don't help us find that unity. The two parties certainly aren't helping. The special interests certainly aren't helping. And the major influencers certainly are not helping. This party represents the center baseline, the center majority consensus for the nation. This is how we unlock our government. By putting a party that actually hears the voice of the people, listens to the voice of this nation's most important resource, the Keystone citizen, the tax-paying, working, middle America citizen, hears that voice, sends representatives to our government that are now representing the voice of the people. True consensus. Now, when the media, when the politicians sent there, the subjects, the members of this party sent to our government to do a job at the will of the people, segments of the population can push back against their decision making. The media can push back. Anyone can push back. But it does no good. They're there as a result of the will of the people. Now they have a job to do, and they will do it. And they will do it with confidence, with authority, with power. That is not happening right now. The answer to our situation is to address the problem. The problem is the two-party system, fueled by these other aspects. The core central problem is right here. This party is a third party that brokers cooperation. It fits in between the two parties. It's interested in one thing, the voice of the center supermajority. It's interested in the unity that exists in this nation at this time and has existed for years and has been ignored for years. It represents the Keystone citizen. We've locked horns. And when two bucks lock horns, it's not a good outcome. When two bucks lock horns, they come together. Typically, two bucks will come together and fight it out. They'll have their contest. And when it's over, they'll go their separate ways. They'll live to see another year. When two bucks lock horns, it's an altogether different outcome. They use up whatever valuable energy they have left. They fight it out until there's nothing there. And that is what we are doing as a nation right now. We are locked horns. When two bucks lock horns, typically the only chance that they have, interestingly enough, is the farmer finds them or the hunter and lends some assistance. This guide unlocks our government. This party of the people, listening to the voice of the people, changes the two-party system. It unlocks our government. It neutralizes our media and the major influencers and the special interests. The day after this election, we're going to be in a whole new place. And we're going to be in a place where the government is out of money. We have used up all of our available funds. And we're going to be in a place where there is going to be no more rescuing the economy. And we are at the doorstep of default, and we are stepping into it right now. To maybe somebody, the media, the major influencers, these folks that are covering our circumstance, but they're not showing us any options. They're not including any options or solutions. They are creating the fight. They are adding to the fight. They are a continuation of the fight. Major influencers, for example. Let's just take major influencers, for example. These folks, they're not coming and saying, hey, let's look for a third-party option. Let's work this out. We have a situation here and we want to help. They're not doing that. They're stepping in and they're adding their voice, a national voice. They're adding their voice to one of the two options. These two options, we can't even call them options necessarily because they're just not good options for what we're facing at this time. These two candidates represent the same thing. They both represent a continuation of a divided government. They both represent default, loss of democracy. Once we enter into a point where our economy begins to fail and it becomes more and more noticeable, it's going to accelerate. And when that happens, we're going to need a functional government to deal with the situation. And we're not going to have that. We will continue to have a divided, locked government. And we will continue on the course that we're on. Neither one of these candidates is in a position, has the capability, has the understanding of our economic situation. And we know this because one of the candidates was actually the president of the United States for a period of time, for 4 years. The other candidate was at the right hand of the president for the last 4 years. And during both of these presidential terms, our debt has skyrocketed. In fact, the previous president of the United States set a record for debt accumulation. And it looks like this current president is going to do precisely the same thing. So with that said, we see the history, that we see the proven track record. We know either one of these two candidates going into our government, along with the two parties that they represent, and the government that's divided in its current state, we know what the outcome will be. It will be more debt, uncontrolled debt. And that will result in a continuation of that step forward into default. Now, when that happens, in our government, our total economy, our total picture, our total nation as a whole, when that economy begins to fail, we might as well call everybody out right here, right now. Just call everyone out. So on behalf of the Keystone citizen, it's time that the Keystone citizen understand that they are united and they are being faced with a choice It is not acceptable to them, does not represent them. That's why there is a fight over their vote. And this choice, once again, like so many before, like the one prior and the election prior to that, and for decades, we've had these elections that are leading us, and they're becoming more and more, shall we say, divided, and more alarming, as we're seeing right now with this election. As we continue that step into default, some folks are going to get hurt. It's going to be very challenging for this nation economically. And the folks that are going to pay the price are right here. They're holding up everything. They are the infrastructure. They are the foundation for everything. The government will continue to get, they'll get their paychecks. They'll continue to get their paychecks. They'll make poor decisions. They won't represent the people, but they'll continue to get paid. The two parties, they'll get their paychecks. The media will go on selling us the fight, even though we're united. They'll go on selling us the fight. And then after they sell us the fight, they'll sell us products in their commercials. They sell us the fight. They keep us at odds. They're pulling apart. They're hurting this resource, and they're making money off this resource. They're paying their bills off this resource. They sell the fight, and then they sell us everything else along with it. Special interests they'll be fine financially. Two parties, major influencers, well, they'll be fine, sure. These folks are going to pay the price. The folks that we're not listening to, the folks we're denying their voice, the most important citizen in this nation, the most important resource in this nation. So after the major influencers have weighed in and caused added their contribution to the situation, to the problems, and help ensure a continuation of a locked government. When the dust settles and it's all over with, and we after this election, from the day after this election to probably to the swearing in, we'll start to hear language surface of, okay, by the way, we're in a situation where we're not in a position to stimulate this economy, and this economy is showing signs of weakness, and here's what our expectations are. And we'll have one of these two candidates in the White House, and our Congress will still be locked. But everyone else will probably, they have funds on a level that aren't consistent with this group right here. They have, things available to them that aren't consistent with this group right here. It'll be this group right here that's going to pay the price. And this group right here is going to have to support everything around them. And it's also interesting to point out, too, using our major influencers again as an example, because they seem to be just really getting involved in so many ways here, as if they somehow think they're doing the nation a favor. They are doing nothing to help the situation. Nothing. The only thing that would help this situation is to start talking about solutions and options rather than backing one of the two problems. And it's important to note that these elements, they operate and function as a result of the infrastructure that is supported and maintained by these citizens right here. The citizens who work. So these major influencers that are getting involved, let's just call them out. Let's just remember this. So the day after this election, when we start hearing the indicators that our economy may not be in a good a shape as we thought, and everyone made it sound like it was in prior to this election, Let's remember the role that everyone played. Major influencers. They have a lot to thank. How do we say this? They can, their status, their wealth, what they've been able to achieve, they've taken their ambition and their skill set and their drive, and they've done something extraordinary. And much of that happened because of a foundation laid down by the Keystone Citizen and is supported by the Keystone Citizen and continues to be supported by the Keystone Citizen. They have much to thank for the assistance and the role that the Keystone Citizen has played in their success. The government has much to thank for the Keystone Citizen. The Keystone Citizen makes the government possible. They make the two parties possible. They are ultimately the income resource for the media, special interests. They are what supports the entire nation. They are the foundation. And their voice is not being heard. And it hasn't been heard for decades. And it has been heard less and less lately, until we are at this time right now. It's interesting to hear some of these major influencers. This could be the most important election of our lifetime. Do you think? No kidding. Well, how illuminating. And yet you are supporting one of the two candidates along with their respective party that is the problem. And somehow our democracy is at risk. I wonder why. Wonder why it's at risk. Geez, let's think about that. What a shame to see it come to this point. This election's in a few days. Major influencers, when this is all over with, perhaps it's time these citizens start recognizing their value. Perhaps these major influencers, let's just ask everybody a question. Let's ask a question. First, Keystone Citizen. Let's have the Keystone Citizen ask themselves a question collectively. Would you like to have your voice heard? The answer to that certainly is going to be yes. This guide right here represents that voice. Read it. Read it. See what you think. Or find one like it. Find one out there just like it. Find options like it. But look for an alternative, because that's what we need right now. If we don't find an alternative, if we don't do something different, then our future is very predictable. Let's ask a question to these major influencers. Let's have the Keystone Citizens collectively ask a question to the media, special interests, major influencers, the two parties, the government. Let's ask the question, is it okay? Is it okay with these entities? Would you support the voice of the Keystone Citizen? Yes or no? Are you okay with supporting the will of the people? If you're going to say yes, well, then start showing it. If you're going to say no, well, then we know where you stand. But you're not supporting the will of the people right now. None of you. Not the government. Not the media's, none of these interests. Our situation has gotten so extreme that the government of the United States has shown indications that they are not even listening to the media. When the media unites on an issue, even the government will ignore them. That is something new that has come about just recently. And that shows you the extremes that we're experiencing at this time. This party is a fundamental baseline for this nation. It reflects the core, the baseline consensus of the working citizen, the Keystone citizen. It supports the working citizen. It recognizes the seriousness of the situation, and it understands that this citizen is being stretched. This citizen is being pulled apart. They're being hurt. Their health is being compromised by what they're being sold. Everyone is selling them, whether it be medications, whether it be junk food, whether it be gambling, no matter what it is. This core citizen, the citizen that has to do the work for the nation, is being sold everything you can imagine. And much of it is not good for them. And much of it is not good for the nation. They need a break. They need some assistance. If we help this citizen, we help everything. We help the citizens in the population that are collecting from the government-dependent citizens. We help them. We help our police. We help our military. We help our foreign policy. Every decision we make in this country right now has to be made with our checkbook in mind. This nation is in a financial situation that is such that we are only in a position to stand with the world community and to act with the world community. We are not in a position to go it alone. We could continue to say it in different ways, but we've said it. We see the seriousness of the situation. We see the different elements. We see the equation. We see the central component that is the problem. Here's how to fix it. This party, when I first started thinking about it, it was just, much of the time you think, well, what really realistically can be done? But once you start looking at this party concept, and once you start to get to know it, you come to realize this will work. This will work. If we build it, it will work. It will work. The party is based on it's based on the will of the people. Think of it as an employee-owned company. It's a party that's owned by the members. The members join, they pay a small due, they have an equal voice in the party. We use social media, we use an app on your phone or on a laptop or a desktop. And you interact with the party on issues, federal right down to local. And the knowledge that is generated in the party, think of the party in two ways. The party is member-owned, similar to an employee-owned company. And then think of the party as having to generate internal information. And that information is generated using wiki technology. Wiki technology is the same technology that is used in Wikipedia and similar wikis. It has evolved in the marketplace. And the expertise that is associated with it has evolved. This party concept can pull from the marketplace right now. There are experts out there there's institutions out there, experts out there, organizations out there right now that are experts at forming and maintaining employee-owned companies with success, with a good high rate of success. They can take their expertise and they can look at this concept and understand what the goal is. And the goal is to restore power to our Congress. To our Congress. That is critical, not to the president. We need to stop this right now. We need to stop looking at the presidency as the answer to our problems. It is our Congress that is the answer to our problems. This is critical and cannot be overstated. There are experts out there right now who can look at this concept, and they have expertise in employee-owned companies, and they can immediately begin to see how their experience can be contributed to this concept. With the wiki technology, Wikipedia has a high success rate, and they have, it's in the 80s. It's in the 80 percentile where they have there's a favorable opinion, there's trust, and they have learned over the years, and they have evolved. And they can take their expertise and they can add it to this. Because what is going to be absolutely critical in this party, because so much of what has led us to the problem we are currently in is the media. All of our issues are being debated on the media. Social media, major influencers, and we're getting nowhere. And we're also not being shown how we're united. That's being kept from us by the major influencers, by the media, by the two parties, by the government, by the special interests. It's being kept from us. We need to get that back because we are united. There is consensus on every issue. The majority of this nation supports our police. The majority of this nation understands climate change is real and we need to act. But we're not going to magically wave a wand or spend countless dollars. We're not going to do that. We're not in a position to do that. They understand it's going to happen naturally on its own, and we just need to help it along. The majority of this nation realizes our welfare state has grown too large. The government-dependent citizen is too many, and we need to have conversation on that, and we need to address that. The majority of this nation understands we're in a financial crisis. The majority of these citizens understand that we are in a financial crisis because they're at ground level. They are right there. They're involved. They can see it right there at ground level. Major influencers can't see it. The rest of these entities most likely can't see it properly. Back to such an important aspect of this party, and that is how we generate information on our issues. We no longer have the debate in our media. We have the debate and the discussion internally in this party. And this party is owned, operated, controlled by the Keystone citizen. And we arrive at consensus on issues. And when we arrive at consensus on issues in this party, and we send someone to our government, they're there with authority. And this is an insulated environment. It's not for public view. It's an insulated, private environment, and everyone has an equal voice. And we generate that information internally using wiki technology, the same way Wikipedia finds neutrality on subjects. They have the trust of the audience. They have the trust of the viewer. And that information that is showing up on these wikis is generated by the audience, can be generated by the audience. I suppose not everyone contributes, but they look at this information, they evaluate this information, and they look for bias. I do it all the time. In my line of work in the natural food industry, I'll get on Wikipedia and I'll research a topic that might have to do with the natural foods and the health industry and what have you, and I look for bias. And I rarely find it when I'm using Wikipedia as a source. I find that special interests are represented. I find that pharmaceutical companies are represented. I find that these entities are represented, but I also find that it's properly presented. The natural approach is properly presented. The alternative viewpoint is properly represented. And that's what we need to start doing. That is critical to establishing consensus, to finding that consensus. It's there. We need to harness it. We need to tap into it. It is there. We are a united nation, and we are being kept from our unity by these elements, by these candidates, by the few on the right and the few on the left. The center majority of the nation is there. We are a united nation. We are as much as 2/3 united on every issue. Well, we got an election. We need to give these citizens a voice. We need to break this cycle. The day after this election, from the day after this election up to the swearing in, we're likely going to come to know our situation a little better, and it's not going to be entirely good. We're in a tough spot. We're in a tough spot, and the working citizen is doing the work and paying the majority of the bill. They need some help. They're being pulled apart. Everyone's fighting. Everyone's locked horns. These folks are here thinking, where's our voice? Somebody. Anybody. And no one's major influencers. If anybody wants to help out, you're welcome to join in. You folks get involved. You major influencers, like you're here to save the day. Well, show it. Prove it. Prove it. Actually look for the voice of the people instead of choosing the two sides that are not the voice of the people. We said it all. It's a good country. Our government's good. Our Constitution is good. The mechanism is good. The vote is still good. The majority of will of the people is still good. The Keystone citizen still makes up the majority of the population. They are good people. They are the people. Look around. Look around at who's keeping everything going. The working citizen. Give them their voice. Do it. And we will find that everyone will benefit. Everyone will still have their place in line. Everyone will still have their status, if you will. But by giving voice to the Keystone citizen with this party, everyone benefits. Everyone.